you all for your presentations. And basically, they're all saying the same thing. I'm really struck, Craig, by yours, because I think it sums it up, where you saying schools cannot carry on like this. We don't have the professional expertise juggling with students' health. We're terrified of dropping the ball. We do not have the time. As long as we continue to act in place of proper services, students will continue to fall between the cracks, and schools will continue to have to choose whether we support a child with in a mental health crisis at the cost of a child with specific learning needs. We're pitting children against each other for resources and time, and I think that is absolutely shameful and has to stop and has to be fixed. So I suppose the idea of us having these hearings and doing this report is that they need to be fixed once and for all, because we've been talking about them for years and years and what needs to be done. So the first thing, I suppose, is around the lack of joined up thinking, and you know, we have NEPs, we have CAMS, we have social workers, the HSE, the Gardaí, the student supports teams who are working in silo and who certainly aren't working in a coordinated way that needs to be done. Who is going to make all of these services work together and work with the student support teams? Like, why is it not happening? Maybe
these are very disparate groups, you know, and I suppose that is the problem. The one thing that unifies these groups is the child in crisis or the family in crisis. These issues are happening within the education sphere, but they are health difficulties. And I suppose it needs to be between the Departments of Health and Education that we have some kind of oversight of this, or someone to tie these together. We need a pathway. We don't necessarily need more people. I mean, sorry, that's a stupid thing to say. Of course we need more people. We need more therapists. We need more psychologists. But what we need to do is tie our groups together better. That does fall, I think, within education, because health is too distant from us as schools to make that happen. We as schools are the first port of call. Our chaplains, our guidance counsellors are the people to whom these children are coming. And our student support teams they graduate to, and then we look to make a referral, and that's the point at which things are breaking down from where I'm sitting as a principal. And if we have a dedicated pathway, and I know that within the CDNTs we have people in charge of looking after AONs. That's the
why don't we have it? You see, this is the problem. You know, is there any interface working between the Department of Health and the Department of Education? Is there any point at which they meet and that it's working for anybody? You know,
I would come in some way there. I suppose what happens when a student engages with the professional services, the CAMS supports will engage with the school at that stage where they collect information. They will send us forms, and they will potentially come out and they will look for information. Where it breaks down from a school's perspective is the information doesn't come back as to what the recommendations are to support the school. So when a diagnosis is being looked for, the information, schools readily have that information and readily provide that information, but there is no mechanism in place for that to come back down. There is no therapeutic supports available to support the schools, and that's a call that I think all of us have been making for many, many years, particularly over the new interventions, junior cycle, well-being, all of that. The therapeutic supports are not available to schools. Now, the question is, should they be hosted in the schools or should they not? And that's a debate that needs to be had, because principals do not have an expertise in a medical professional, so there's a supervision issue if it's a medical service. And that's a debate that we want to be in, but at the moment, we're not even there yet. And the information is not coming back down to schools. Once they get a diagnosis letter, the supports are not there to help the student engage with their learning. And I use that word specifically because that's the purpose of schools, to engage with the learning, not to deliver those therapeutic services. But
why isn't it coming back down? I think we really need to look at the why and where the blocks are here to be able to free them up. So why? I mean, who is blocking? Like, it has to be blocked by somebody, that it's not coming back, that you don't have that flow there, where the child is the centre of everything.
And at times there's certain information with the permission of the parent, but there's other information that medical professionals don't release to schools.
Is there a reason they don't release it to schools? Like, is there a good reason that they shouldn't release it to the schools in order for the teams then to be able to help the
we're
children?
not looking for the sensitive information. What we're looking for is the practical
enabling
exactly.
information.
But equally, there is a lack of understanding, and this is where the whole system needs to collaborate. Unless you've worked in a school, it's very difficult to understand and make a recommendation that is practical and realistic that a school can operate. And it's those interactive, collaborative meetings that don't take place and are very difficult to take place because creation of time within the system is difficult.
Yeah. Did you want to say something on that?
Yes, Deputy. There was a time when schools were directly involved and schools could make direct referrals to service, for example, like CAMS. That has changed now, and those referrals have to be made through the GP rather than the school. And then the whole nature of how referrals are made has moved now so that it's parent and family centred rather than school centred. So that means it's within the parent's responsibility to make the referral on. That assumes parents are agentic, are in charge, are in control, and can manoeuvre, you know, the web of different services, the web of different waiting lists. Let's not even call them services. The web of waiting lists that are out there. And parents then will ask us, can you intervene on our behalf? So we need to get written consent from parents for every single service under GDPR and all these things that are barriers that are put in our way. There was a time when I could ask for a case conference around the child, where the child is at the centre of the table.
Yes.
And I would figuratively speak before we would start about the child being at the centre of the table, where I could draw in those services. That has been diluted to the point that it just doesn't exist anymore. That's down to staffing levels. That's down to 10 years ago with the cuts that were introduced, not been reinstated. Service has been absolutely skeletised. We have talked about balkanisation. We've talked about the need for integration, joined up thinking silos. We've an amazing vocab, but we have not made the connections that we need to make. I work in a SIPSI, which is a Young People's Services Committee, which tries to bring together the health and the education services, TUSLA, CAMS, primary care. Education will not turn up. Education will not turn up to even discuss these issues. Education tells us that's NCSC, education tells us that's NEPS. We cannot get them to engage. So I am working on a pilot project in my area in Dublin 15 to see can we get back to doing what we used to do. Family-based services. What is the one thing we know about it? Nearly every child in the country, they attend a school. So let's pull services in around those children so that we can actually make a difference. But it does come down to the recruitment issues and retention issues that Senator have made and Deputy that you have made as well. But I think schools can be part of the solution here. But that whole sense of pulling the services in around the child and putting the child at the centre.
So would it take a direction from the Minister of Education to get education to turn up? So, and I'll finish it at that and come back.
Briefly.
I absolutely think, yes, that would be the case. And I know that those conversations are ongoing, but it's as an end user, it's infuriating. I'm 25 years ago, I was a homeschool teacher in Ballymun. We were talking about the exact same thing, unfortunately.
Senator